Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. So in this video now, we've downloaded the AdventureWorks 2014 database, and now I'm going to attach it to the SQL Server 2014 now that I've installed it, so we have some data to work with. So let's see how you do that. You'll notice here on my desktop, as we mentioned earlier, when we downloaded the original, we have the AdventureWorks 2014 database. So what we need to do now is get that database to the VM right here. And as you know, we can do that a couple of ways. One is through a shared folder. So if I go back to my server here, and if I click on this shared drive, you can see that I've got SQL Server. So all we need to do is just dump it here from our database and we'll review it. So let's see how you do that. So what we need to do is go back to your desktop and right click and copy it. And let's go back to our C drive, back to our SQL 14. That's the folder that's being viewed. And then just right click and let's just paste it here. And at the same time, before we do that, you'll notice that it's a zip, so we have to extract it. So right click, let's say extract all. And we want it to be extract. Where do we want to extract it to? We want it to extract it in this folder, so just go OK. And you'll see that it's extracted right here. So now that we can view it in this directory. So let's go back to our virtual environment right here. And if I refresh it, you can see that I've got the database here zipped and then the database here, extracted here. So everything now that is being shared here will automatically be shared by your virtual machine. So here it is. So what we want to do actually is double click this. This is what's called a backup copy of a AdventureWorks 2014. So what I want to do is actually let's just copy that and let's put it on my C drive. Make a folder here. Just call it backup. And I'll just dump it here. And then we can navigate to this. Let's paste it here. And that's the AdventureWorks. So actually we have to restore what's called a restoring database. So in order to get that, go back to your SQL. On your databases, right click, restore database. And now what we're going to do is navigate to that screen. So go device. And let's go to the ellipsis. Add. And all I'm doing is directing myself to that backup folder that we've got on the C drive. And there it is. And just go click on this, go OK, OK, and then go OK. And this should just take a few seconds because it's a very, very small database. As you can see right here, there we go. And now if I go to my databases here, you can see that I've restored the database AdventureWorks 2014. And if I expand it, this is where all the data, if you will, resides. And these are all the tables that are related to that SQL server. So if I go right click, select top 100 or 1000, I should say, you'll get all the data that's relevant to that particular table. In this case, 290 rows. So that's great. So let's go back to our AdventureWorks. So we've done this now. So actually, I'm going to continue with this. So I'll do a few more. Let me look at the time for a sample. And that's fine. So I'm going to actually do a few more things. So this is the environment that a SQL database administrator works in. Once you're familiar with this, you'll feel extremely comfortable in doing your job. So when you sit down on your front desk in your office, this is what you're going to be seeing. It's not going to be anything different than this. And the reason I'm mentioning is that because a lot of students have some fears of looking at interfaces that may be different that they've been working with. And it's not until you get into the actual job and actually sit in front of your computer and double click the icon for SQL Server and start looking at this and allaying your fears, because you go, hey, this is exactly what Raphael taught me, and that's true. So this is exactly what I see when I'm sitting down and I have to work with databases. So let's look at a few statements here. Let's look at a few things we can do. What a database did. One of the most important things that a database administrator does is called backing up a database. Basically, I'm making a copy of it. If you'll notice here right now, I actually restored the database from a backup. So actually, let me look at this. Let me close this. Let me right click and I'm going to actually delete this entire database. Now, in a production environment, you would never do this unless there's a reason to, but I'm actually going to delete this entire database. So there you go, and I'm going to go OK, and that database has been deleted, and it's gone, and all the information, all the relevant data has been gone. So this is a very critical thing that a database does. But the great thing is that because a DBA has what's called backups on a regular schedule, he can restore that database up to the point and with very little data. So we already know that we already had a backup of that because that's how we restored it. So now that I've deleted it, how'd you get that VentureWorks back if you had to? Well, the database administrator would do this: right click, restore, and again, he would do exactly what we just did a second ago. He would go back to his original backup copies of the data, and he would restore it. So now we don't lose any data. As long as we have a backup of the most current data, and I show you that in the videos, then we're good. So here we go and back. And if we expand that, we can see all the tables and so on. So that's a great advantage also. So now that we've done the backup of a database, what is TSQL? Well, T stands for Transact SQL. Transact SQL stands for Structured Query Language. And what TSQL is the short version, or SQL, is what the language does is primarily used for database languages such as SQL. Oracle uses it, MySQL uses it, and other databases use it, like Access also. And basically, it's a language that allows you to manipulate every aspect of SQL. So let's look at some of these right now. So the first one that I was going to give you a demonstration of was the select statement. So let's say you have data now in this database, and let's expand the tables, and we're going to do a simple select statement. A simple select statement its primary purpose is to view the data. So for example, let's see what's the data in person address or person business or whatever. What you would do is up here on the left, create a new query. This is the pane where you would write your T-SQL language commands. So in order for me to view data of any of these tables, I would use the select command. And it is select. Since I want all the data, I would go asterisk, and then from, and then the table that I want to extract the data from or view the data. So let's say in this case, I want to view the data of human resources. I can just drag, and that's it. As soon as I execute, I get all the relevant data, 16 rows, for that particular statement. So this is basically how you use a select statement, is to view any data. So let's make another one. So now I'm going to do a little copy paste. I don't want to use this table, obviously, so I can write it. Now, obviously, you saw me drag the table, or I can actually just write it. So I can write person dot, and you'll see what's called the IntelliSense that allows you to make typing a little less easier. So for now, if I highlight this and execute, I've got all the data relevant to that. And you can see there's almost 20,000 rows for the person. And these are all the data. So I'll leave that here. So that's what's called a select statement. It allows you to do. What about what's called the where clause? The where clause, its primary purpose is just to filter the data. In database administration, as you can see, when I did this, I've got almost 20,000 rows. Well, in a production environment, you don't want 20,000 rows. You just want specified rows that the end user wants. So this asterisk here specifically says, give me every single row and every single column. These are columns and these are rows. So as you can see, we're getting 20,000 columns. So let's use the where clause. So in this case, I just want all the data that's relevant to, let's say, the last name of Duffy. So I would want all the data. So I just want this one line, and that is where the where clause would come in. The where clause would be as follows. So you say, give me every single data from that table where, and then you say last name. And as I said, the IntelliSense allows you to do that. Equals, since it's a text, we have to have it in quotes. And now just Duffy. And now you'll notice that when I did this without the where clause, as I said, I've got 20,000 rows. If you want to filter the database, you use the where clause. In this case, I'm saying, give me everything from this table where the last name equals Duffy. So if I have more than one last name of Duffy, then I should get relevant rows. Highlight, execute. And as you can see, I do have more than one Duffy. So now I've got the where clause. So that's great. So let's move on. What is the update statement? The update statement is just what it says. It updates a specific item or a specific column or a specific row or whatever the data you validate. So for example, in this particular case, you can see that let's look at this one here. So highlight it and execute. You'll notice that department ID 1 has the engineering name and research development. Suppose you want to change that to update to reflect something else. This is where the update statement would come in. So the update statement is as follows. You say update the table name, in this case, department. I'm just going to copy that rather than writing it. So update that table, which is this table. Then you say set. And what do I want to do? I want to set the column name. So I say name, column name, equals to what do I want to set it to? So I want to set that to, let's take the sales and make it caps. So I'll put it in quotations, it's text. And now you can see that. Now, this basic update statement is basically saying, go to this table, which is this table right here, and where you find the column name, find the column name, and then wherever you see the word sales, change it to capital. If I executed this update statement now, everything would be capital S because I've not put a filter on it. So when you're doing an update statement, it's very, very crucial, I should say, that you put a where clause. So only updates this particular cell rather than everything. So I would have to say where name equal sale. Oops, now I'm going to do sales. So now if I go, now it's going to go to this table, and anytime it finds the word sales, it's going to do it uppercase. So let's see if that's the case. And if I execute it, we're good. One row affected. And let's look at that. And now you'll see that that has been updated. So that's what the primary purpose of an update is, to take existing data and manipulate it to whatever you want. So that's great. But the important thing is make sure you have a where clause. Let's see if I didn't do that. Let's say, for example, if I didn't put the where clause, let's say execute it, and oops, can't do it because it's an index. That's fine. Don't worry about that. And let's look at that. I don't want to get into indexes here, but as you can see, if I didn't do it, this would be entirely, or everything would be capital S's. So this is important to do this. Let's move on. What about the delete statement? Well, the delete statement actually, as the name suggests, deletes certain things. So let's say we want to delete something now. For example, let's say we want to delete this entire table. So I would go right click, delete, and this will pop up. And if I actually do the script, I can actually see the script that actually is going to be doing this. So now the drop statement is, which is comparable to delete statement, it's going to actually drop this entire table. So if I execute this and execute it, it's a foreign key, so I can't do that either. So that's not good. Let's look at a delete statement. Let's look at delete this statement here. So delete this. Oops, let's copy that properly. Copy. So what I'm going to do now is go to that table and delete that. Where I need the where clause, department ID equals 2. And let's see what happens here. Oh, I'm sorry, 3. Or it could be, doesn't matter, it's 3 or 2. And if I highlight this and execute it, Okay, these are reference keys. So let me find a table that doesn't have what's called reference keys. You can't drop or something with the key. So if it's got a, like this primary key, you can't drop it. But the whole purpose is that you can allow you to drop certain things using the delete statement. And I don't know which ones they are. Most of these tables here are. So actually what I'm going to show you next is one more thing here. Joins. The primary purpose of joins is to join two or more tables. It's very rare that you do a select statement or update statements or delete statements against just a single table. In a production environment, most tables are related and you use what's called a join. So let's see if we can do that. And let's create a new query. And I'm going to just show you actually what a query join looks like rather than manipulating it. So we can do actually let's look at the employee. Now these are all the tables, as you can see, related to that. So let's see what we can choose here. It doesn't really matter. Let me actually just go back to sales. I can do sales details, sales header, and that's it. Now here you can see that this is what's called a relationship, and it's an inner join. And basically it's taking data, joining it, and now I can say, hey, give me the order quantity, product ID, unit price of that particular table, and it can give me the status and account number or whatever I choose here. But this is what's called a join. And if I execute this, it's basically giving me the result set of both those two tables using what's called a join. So again, you can see this data here is 121,000 rows. So that's what a purpose of a join is to join two tables. So and that's about it. That's all I really want to talk about in the SQL environment. Now obviously there's a tremendous amount of more that a DBA does, but this will give you a synopsis of what the responsibilities are, which are huge. But this is a very rewarding profession, both financially and personally for me. So I truly love my job. And I think this will give you a taste of what now the SQL environment does. And we'll continue with the next one where I'll show you, if you want to pursue this kind of a career and what it entails, what are the requisite courses and so on that you need. So let's see what we're going to do next after this. So I'm going to use a clipboard to copy paste, full screen capture, and address. We've already shown you how to access a shared folder. And what I mean by that is what you noticed here is when you have a folder on your desktop and you want to be able to view it in your virtual machine, and then you use a share. So we've gone over that before. And a couple of things I want to show you about just using the clipboard. And I think I'll show you that now, maybe in the next video. So I think I'll leave it here now. So now you get an idea of what an SQL DBA does. Although really I shouldn't say what it really shows you, because this is very, very tip of the iceberg. But at this point, what you should be able to do is understand and navigate through this interface. This is what I want you to show. This is where I do all my work, and this is where you will do your work. It's nothing dissimilar here. And again, there's a tremendous amount of securities that we take care of, replication, always on, and so on. So there's a tremendous amount of data to learn. So I think I'll leave it here, and we'll continue with the next one where I'll show you just a few hints about the VM and its properties. So I hope you're learning a lot here, and if you are, then we'll continue with the next video where I'll show you how to get all this stuff and get more relevant data. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL data administrator. See you in the next video.